Hello and welcome to Autistic Radio on Sunday, reliable as ever. Thank you to our sponsors coldpack.co.uk. When you use the site coldpack.co.uk as a practitioner, getting a printed cold pack for your practice, the best one for your patients, we benefit here at Autistic Radio through Autistic Association. Also, if you use the site as a home user, we benefit from the whole of that purchase as a contribution here to the work we're doing. But what we're really waiting for is Harry to take it away with the 555 Live. Are you ready there in the studio there, Harry?
Thanks, Jules. Hello, everyone. This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 15th of February 2026. And this is where we discuss the posts that were shared on autisticradio.com Facebook page. And the first post is from the autistic poet, who has a page, poet, tutor, teacher, and blogger. Life on the autistic spectrum, lived out loud, an autistic adult moving through the world with my family by my side. Poems, quiet thoughts, raw truths, and gentle information about autism, identity, and the journey to and after diagnosis. And shared the following. Autism makes it hard to change routine and to do new things. However, change can be positive and lets us explore. With help and encouragement, things which appear daunting can be achieved. This week, I helped an autistic student to get through a business workshop at school. It ran all day, and she had to come out of her usual lessons to work in a new venue with new people. She was shaking at points, but smashed it overall, even contributing to some of the tasks verbally. So proud of her. This is my poem about trying new things. It's called Stepping Stones. Look to the brook where the stepping stones rise, breaking the current, holding you high, helping you cross and keeping you dry. No risk, no harm, so safe. You've made it once again. Made it just like every time. Always, every single time. One step, two step, left foot, right. So routine could walk this blind. But stop. Consider. This water's neither sea nor river. You can't know if it's fast or it's slow when you're too scared to feel the flow. Maybe there's far more than this. Maybe there's are things you miss. Perhaps they are more than just arriving, more to life than just surviving. Cold water kisses the tops of your feet, soft clay massaging deep beneath, smooth, rounded pebbles dressed in algae. Emerald dragonflies dart around your knees. No hurt, just alert to the meaning of being, to feeling the moment, to feeling alive. Grateful for this chance, excited by the right here, right now, as the here and the now feel so outrageously right. So, look to the brook where the stepping stones rise. And ask yourself, what do you lose to stay dry? By the artistic poet. What's people's thoughts?
I thought it was cool that in the introduction, a flow or a flow state was referred to, because in the 444, that was kind of our topic. But then also, I wanted to say it, it reminded me of sometimes when we've always been the person who is helped across the stones, the stepping stones. We end up being strong enough to help other people.
What I like about the post, and the reason I shared it, is this continuing, repeated instance where I need to come out my comfort zone. The stereotypical autistic routine safe space that I feel cocooned in and safe. But I also become bored as well. And there's also opportunities to open out a bit more, which can be quite frightening because you get used to being a safe space that's been curated. And it's been curated by bad experiences in the past, so to avoid those experiences repeating. But then there's also the other side where you want to try something new, or there's an opportunity to try something new, but there's a fear of doing so. And it's the preparation of doing that and getting support of doing that. Because I've done a few things myself and there's been support there. And going through that support and going through that new experience on most occasions is a positive one. There are times where it's not so positive and it becomes a life lesson. Right, tried it, I won't try that part again. But even when it is negative, even though when it's raw, it's quite intense, but when time passes, you reflect on that negative experience. It's still an experience that, in a positive way, at least it was tried. And I think this poem relates to a lot of that. You know, dipping your toe in the water, basically. Robbie in the text shares, for me, it is uncertainty rather than change that I have a problem with, and imposed change.
I I also thought that the writer in the preamble captured the feeling of doing something so big that somebody's so afraid of that they were shaking and they did it and they really succeeded. That's that's really that was really the whole thing about the stepping stones, isn't it? And it goes with what Robbie was saying. It's the uncertainty.
Wasn't there a discussion recently about us having a poetry corner? How is that going?
Yeah, I wanted to say something about that. That was a really powerful opening to the show, Harry. Taking poetry as our way into our conversations this evening, that really fits. And like Ray says, there's this whole bubbling up of people wanting to use poetry more. Why don't we actually start the show every week from a poem?
Yeah, it's certainly a good idea. We've shared a lot from Autistic Poet and from others, but I'm happy to share with others as well. And you're right, it does start because a poem, especially when it's reflecting on autistic experience, and it particularly reflecting on a personal experience from the writer, is a good way of starting a discussion. And if people are happy to share what we've talked about before, a bit of poetry corner, and that can be part of this broadcast, I'm happy to share.
Was I right when I read that it was Robbie who wrote poetry, and I know Harry does. GR, do you write poetry as well? Were you involved?
Yeah, I circulated the whale poem a couple of weeks back.
I'm only thinking about that because earlier on we were taught you had a very strong defence of science, I believe, and it was something that came up when I was watching one of these TV dramas about autistic characters, and how in the autistic support group the majority seem to find poetry or the poetic a difficult thing to relate to.
I think it depends. I mean, I did write the lyrics for a song called Autism Man. So there is that.
Yeah, I've found at times lyrics serve a song, so that they have a kind of functional promise there. They serve something. Poetry, I think, also serves something. It can create an entirely new way of conceiving things.
Oh, absolutely. The sophistication of communication in poetry is where it's at for me autistically. It's a very polarizing thing, really, isn't it? Because you're right. Some people say that they find dealing with metaphor and multiple meanings to words when they're in relationship to other words. Poetry, the actual meaning of a word in poetry is entirely affected by the structure they're put in quite a certain way. Some people don't relate to that at all, but to be able to relate to that and to use poetic language, I think is also very, very autistic.
Yeah, I think it's very, very autistic and that it's not in opposition to science either. I think maybe in a, I think a lot of there's a lot of, maybe it's, we all happen to know there are all these ways to be autistic, but I do know there's at least a cluster of people, and we seem to have a large cluster here of poetic people. And I've, even through my adult life, know a lot of poets, have been to a lot of poetry things, write really, really minimalist poems, and still struggle with metaphor, not in a poem, but in these other situations like sort of ethics and philosophy. I find those more difficult. Um, Maybe the TV show was simplifying it or something.
Well, I think they draw characters and they get very siloed and into categories. But you were making me think of something there. Yeah, it's like I think there's something almost revolutionary and rebellious about going old school and getting into forms like writing poems and letters and just going outside and maybe shouting, like that Monty Python character. Anyway, just thinking.
If I were,
Ray,
Hello?
go ahead, Teresa.
oh, sorry, I lost my thought, but it's okay. It probably wasn't important.
Ray, I think you've absolutely nailed it there. It is going old school. Actually, the Autistic Radio project is old school in its conception completely. This audio only format that gives people the opportunity to listen without being told what to think, because it's only coming into them in audio. They can be much more in control of what they listen to, and yeah, simplicity, stripping things back, 2 words, giving people the opportunity to do the thinking around it. Old school in that sense, seems to be where we're at here. And there aren't any of us who don't do some kind of creativity with words, poetry in some ways. We're all blogging or writing or doing something, every single one of us.
Or
That's kind of,
curating or appreciating, like Ray. Ray, you can draw. You're like a human algorithm for connecting art forms to each other, like all of the influences and things.
kind of goes back to a thing I was saying in the earlier hour about, sometimes you get that feeling that there isn't anything out there. And that's very possibly, like, because it's been removed. It was there, you remember it, but you recall it somehow, a vague memory. But when you go out, it's not there anymore. It's like they paved paradise and put up a parking lot, didn't they? So it's like the environment as well. It's like that. It's like you turn around the corner and you think you're in the street and you're not because they changed it all. Where did that go? So it's the same thing with these old school items, yeah.
Well, look, if you take Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, the temperature of burning books, as a kind of idea, that what's happening around us at the moment is the way the internet is being used with AI. It's the equivalent of information being burnt away, trivialized to such an extent that it's indecipherable. So what we're doing is being so old school that we're creating an alternative communication in a simpler form that isn't affected by any of that, and it's made a few humans together and then disseminated out. It's rebellious just in that form, and people's poetry as part of that is another artistic layer of rebellion. Whatever we do and we put out there, because we now have this form, we have a rebellious space, and it's an autistic space.
Just need to watch a fireman don't get us. There was another Ray Bradbury short story I loved as a kid called The Pedestrian, where, like, if you just walked a street, you got arrested by these autonomous machine craft that monitored a little bit like drones. But yeah, it had this amazing imagery, a guy walking the street past all these glowing windows, all watching television. Nobody ever went out. He was the only guy who did it.
Oh, that's a good image. I've always liked, not of the being captured, of the glowing lives through the windows that character's seeing.
The grabbing of our attention and holding us through our attention.
The next post. is from Flourish with Neurodiversity, who's a coach helping you flourish and thrive, not just survive. Neurodiversity coaching and services, ADHD, AUDHD and Tourette's, adults and children, work school, PIP, DLA, EHCP, support training and resources, free Flourish Neurodiversion Hub. And what they've shared is a presentation, a diagram. What they've shared is a diagram. What helps you manage tics? Soothe and support your body. And they say, this is something I've learned over time about managing my tics. I'm sharing in case it helps someone else, because I know how painful, exhausting, and sensory they can be. For me, a big part of tic management is soothing my nervous system and reducing sensory overload, not just trying to suppress the tics themselves. When my body feels safer and calmer, my tics often ease. Here are some of the things that help me. Heated eye mask. Really helpful for eye blinking tics, sore eyes and migraines. Sometimes I use cool or ice pack instead, depending on what my body needs. Neck pillow. Supports my neck and can reduce neck tics and pain. Woolly hat or soft headband. Gentle pressure around my head can be calming and reduce sensory stress. Back support or lying down, especially when back tics are strong or painful. Epsom salt baths helps relax my muscles and nervous system. Weighted or calming pressure. A lap pad or even my dog sitting on my lap can be very regulating. Avoiding triggers when I can. For me, this includes fluorescent lighting, low sun, and headlights when driving in the dark. Five-toed socks or compression socks or clothing. These really help with sensory issues and toe tics. Everyone's nervous system is different, so what works for me might not work for someone else. But if you're struggling, it might be worth experimenting with gentle sensory supports and nervous system regulation. Managing pain is also important, whether it be painkillers, having massage or treatment, or using heat or ice. You are not alone. You don't have to just push through the pain. Be kind to yourself. If you need help figuring out what might help support your nervous system, please book a free 20-minute discovery call at www.flourishwithneurdiversity.com. What's people's thoughts with this? Are they familiar with the tics term?
Are they part of stimming?
I find a few of those things to be really uncomfortable, something over my face, and I've never worn five-toed socks, but that sounds absolutely horrific.
I did think that too. A mask on my face makes me feel claustrophobic in a completely undescribable way, but then something else on the list might be good. About the five-toed socks, I do have shoes like that that are good for that weird proprioception feeling, but I don't have it very often.
I arrange my pillows a bit like a neck pillow. I'll do a triangle of two at the side and then one over the top, a bit like an anarchy sign. Haha. um, Eye masks, yeah, I've used them only for like things like blepharitis when you get like really like itchy eyes. But that was medical advice. Sometimes the best thing is to do nothing. I'll say that on occasion. But yeah, I'm noticing that bright lights are beginning to bug me a bit now. Just might be, age and eye sensitivity.
I usually find my tics are, or I do tick, I call them tics. It's when I'm really highly stressed. So having a bath or any of those things probably wouldn't help because it's generally in when I'm high stressed, like for instance, when somebody's coming around the house to do some work or somebody's coming, I have to go and meet somebody for a reason. My hands flap. I can't stop it, and I don't try and stop it because it's so kind of shaking it out of my system. I'm doing it as I speak. So for me, there's nothing I could do to prepare. I don't think. I mean, I wear an eye mask in bed with headphones because I listen to things at night, because it calms me and helps me sleep. But I do wear an eye mask, so it's absolutely pitch black when I go to bed. But a lot of my ticks and moves are generally when there's something on the horizon that I'm not looking forward to, and it kind of shows in my body.
Yeah, a lot of these tics can be quite unconscious, can't they? What was it that was being discussed recently? Oh, it's gone.
Teresa?
The hand flapping one, I started doing again. Like when it starts, I don't stop it because I think it must be good. Um, but that said, I probably, I'm in the house a lot. So I don't know. I don't know about in public yet, but just throwing that in.
Yeah, the autistic sway. Yeah, that was a post that Ray forwarded to. I can't remember the man's name, but it was forwarded and it was shared on the page. Not something that I do. I'm just unsure if I tick or not. Yeah, Rich Pink is the person that shared the sway one. It was kind of it was a humorous sort of video. Um, I'm unsure if I tick or not because I live alone and no one tells me. And when I'm out in other people's company, I am assuming that I'm asked because I do it automatic. And when I was reading about ticks, I was actually wondering if if it was the same as stimming. But I was checking on the internet while we were talking that it's actually a difference. The tics is more of a negative thing than stimming is. So it's an interesting conversation, but it does give examples of tics right enough, but I'll have a look.
I always thought that tics were a kind of physical manifestation of a stress situation.
I sort of have some head tics as well. Sometimes when I'm out, I find I'm moving my head about a bit. I mean, they don't bother me in terms of I know I'm doing them for a reason, and I feel that it's just okay to let them happen. You know, and if I'm sort of ticking or swaying or doing something, that's how I relieve my stress. So but all these are presupposed things that you could do, but I can't see that any of that would be in the moment very useful. Especially, yeah, like having sort of like a hat on would not help. You know, yeah, it's very in the moment for me.
I'm thinking about when I've had tics which are like in my eyes, so it's like stress and strain, your eyelids will twitch and you can get facial twitches. So there's little tremors that you get sometimes. And my aunt had neuralgia. I think that one that you get where there's a twitch in your face. But anyway, relieving those things like migraine can take a lot of work.
The definition from what a tic is, when I've searched it, on the Bing search engine, it says that tics in individuals with autism are involuntary, repetitive movements or vocalizations that can be categorized as motor or vocal, and further divided into simple and complex forms, often occurring alongside stimming behaviours. Then it goes into big detail, kind of clinical talk, basically. But that's the kind of introductory explanation of what this particular information says tics are.
When I think of tics, I think of Tourette's. There's an absolutely brilliant film out at the moment called I Swear, and I think it's hit the mainstream. You can, it's gone through the cinemas and it's on the streaming services. I think even including Amazon Prime, so people can get it for free if they sign up and try it out. And it's made locally to here in the Borders. Guy with Tourette's, his experience through school, and then it's an uplifting story because it's a true story about how they brought attention to Tourette's and also took part in something that alleviated some of the tics, which directly sort of did something with an electrical device on the brain. So there was a involuntary thing that was being researched. I Swear, it's a great film and it's up for awards.
Teresa, you want to speak? Just to check we can hear you. No, nothing's coming through.
Maybe Teresa needs to rejoin, refresh.
Can you hear me now?
Yes?
That sounded like a great movie, Jules. And I'll go back to Lucy, the way she was describing the certain things that don't work for her. One thing that's not included that I thought of last week, and I was thinking about my grandmother. She loved to go on rides at the carnival, and I loved to spin, spin myself around. And then later on, I did find running, especially trail running, helpful. Although I do agree with baths.
The next post. is from Blue Sky Learning. Mental health service. We support neurodivergent individuals globally with coaching, counselling and consulting services based in Canada. And they shared the following. Here's what no one tells you about autism. Most of what people think they know about autism comes from myths, stereotypes, and outdated research, not from autistic voices or lived experience. Autism is often misunderstood as something it is not, including a mental illness caused by vaccines, an epidemic, something to be cured, the result of bad parenting, a learning disability, savant syndrome, a new phenomenon. These misconceptions do more than spread information. These misconceptions do more than spread misinformation. They create real barriers to understanding, diagnosis, accommodations, and access to neurodiversity affirming care. The truth is, autism is a neurodevelopmental difference, not a deficit. Autistic people experience the world through unique patterns of communication, sensory processing, learning, and connections. Those differences deserve respect, not correction. At Blue Sky Learning, our neurodiversity affirming therapists and coaches work to challenge harmful myths and support autistic individuals across the lifespan, especially those who were missed or misdiagnosed in childhood. Book a free 20-minute consultation at www.blueskylearning.ca or email hello@blueskylearning.ca. What's people's thoughts on what's was shared?
Wow, I didn't expect it to end like that. That's a .ca.california web address there, so an American organization. Up until that, it sounded like a really good list of things that we need to reaffirm again and again and again. Go back to the basics. Say, these are the things that are the general misconceptions about autism that again and again we need to continually combat. So a great list, and something we should steal. Not quite sure about the messenger.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
.ca is Canadian. We've heard from that poster before. I missed part of it.
Oh, goodness me. Thank you. I'm thinking of the Caliph thing that came untie that recently. So yeah, thank goodness that sounds much, that puts a healthier spin on it to me. Because as I say, it's a great list.
I'm just viewing the pages as a wee bit more expansive, the list. They go a wee bit more into what they mean by these terms.
Sorry, Teresa, did you miss the reading of the post? Yeah, maybe sound issues or connection issues. I like what it's saying. And you kind of threw me a little bit there when you said California, Jules. But then Jesus says it was Canada, because that's what I thought it was. And as you say, it depends the location it's coming from and the nation it's coming from, because because of different countries have the different journeys of what they think autism is, and there's always that suspicion and that resentment sometimes because of other experiences of other, basically the way things are in certain places. But I like how it throws this message across, because the misunderstanding of autism continues to this day, and it will continue. And a lot of misinformation will be deliberate. It won't be because they don't know or they don't know any better. It's like they want it to remain as it is because of previous conversations we've talked about is people in power. And if you give too much information, it lessens that power. It lessens that power over people. And as cynical as it sounds and as brutal as it sounds, that's what that's all about in many ways, if not all the time. So I like this post and how it says, and the positive spin as well, because there'll be a lot of people out there that are, they're not diagnosed yet, or look to be diagnosed or identifying. And this sort of information is very important, especially if you live in countries which this misinformation of autism exists, more fully than others. So it's good to share this type of information, because a lot of autistic people feel bad enough without misinformation of throwing off they're not well, they're this, they're that. Even though there's learning difficulty and disability with people who are autistic, that's just the same as everybody being different, everybody having different identities, struggles, and strengths.
My whole experience of the county council that had autism was me being treated as though I had a learning disability.
I think the interesting thing for me is when I got it wrong and I thought this might be coming from America, I was putting up a flag saying, oh, this looks like great words, but where's it coming from? And when I was corrected and told it reminded that it was a poster that we'd had before and it was from Canadian, and I immediately switched that to, oh, this might be a more reliable source, just on the basis of where it was coming from country-wise, USA or Canada. I think that's really telling about the prejudice here I would have about the source of the situation.
It's just the
Can you hear me?
experience. On you go, Teresa. I can hear you now, Teresa. Can you hear me? I think, from what you're saying, Jules, it may sound prejudiced when you're saying, oh, it's from that country, that means this. And if it's another country, oh, it's different, it's actually more positive. And that can only come from experience of what. I mean, there's a lot of stuff from the United States that we've talked about. A lot of it's good, but there's a lot that's like the language seems outdated, the approach doesn't seem right, and just the way things are like in the United States at the moment. It's like everything's getting lumped into this negative category if it's not the so-called normal in terms of what they think normal is, it's easy to kind of be suspicious and feel, oh, it's from there. Well, I'm not so sure about that. Although there will be people in that country that will be, for want of a better term, be on our side.
I think you're right. I think California might be one of the places where they could be on our side. And then in my mind, I have a map just based on mm, my proximity to the United States and kind of where our allies might be. But I think more importantly, voices are being silenced right now there.
The next post is from Pete Warmby, autistic author. An autistic and ADHD award-winning writer and speaker on autism and autistic a lived experience. And he shared the following quote. If you want to teach autistic children social skills, be explicit that they are neurotypical social skills, useful when dealing with non-autistic folks, but not the only correct way. Autistic social skills should be valued too. What's people's thoughts? It's the first time I've heard about autistic social skills, that term in itself.
I really like it. If when we were children, that was a thing, I think that would have been great.
Again, I'm going to quote from television dramatisations of autistic characters. There's a scene where autistic neurodivergent people meet up in groups to discuss social aptitude and perhaps social skills. And I think they identify that they have their own way of communicating, their own way of being, and they're very comfortable about it in the group. And they are very aware of the thing that they find difficult and cannot do, which is the social skills of the non-autistic or neurotypical, say. And I think what they often find creatively is there's this grey area in between, where there's a kind of inclusiveness, which should always really be defended and asserted, that we're not going to take sides, that, but we do have to realise that there may be an autistic social skill. I think they're quite evident. You know, any one of us is probably looks into our history and can see them, see where we've had them operating for us, or we've performed them. But I'm curious about this inclusive grey area where, like, we find something else. It's not autistic and it's not non-autistic. It's just communication.
Robbie shares a good point. Non-autistic people should be taught autistic social skills. Autistic people are expected to make all the effort.
Yeah, but if we don't engage, how are they going to know what those things are? If we don't engage with people and explain what they are, then they are not going to change. And then that just means that people are going to assume that we are a certain way unless we show them that we aren't.
I agree with you, Gio. And what you say also follows from what Ray says. That grey area, that communication, that overlapping ways of communication and social skills to communicate. And sometimes I think we also need to remember we are in a minority, which pushes a bit of the responsibility back on us. If we're less than 10% of the general population, it's going to be us that are trying to need to adapt this kind of duality a bit more than they are.
I like that. I saw that building really nicely. And then about the statistics, I found myself in some situations where the percentage is higher than the population. So like with genealogists, librarians, and not and a certain type of developer, like programmer developer, not not the kind who does the shiny graphics, the kind who does the big, uh, like maybe would fix the speed of the internet or something. Nothing bad. I've been in those groups most of my adult life, and the percentage is higher. So I can fit in some tips, like to the people I know who are not. Tips like we would just do here, subtle things like camera off is okay, etc.
Yeah, and with Ray saying about the depiction of autism social groups on TV, can I just quickly slip in a mention that Patience has just been renewed for a third season of 10 episodes and starts filming in March. And of course, that is probably where most people are going to see autism social groups. You know, all right, it's a fictional scenario, but that's where they're going to see these groups on TV.
I think Patience is going to be controversial, isn't it? It's going to be well known, the adaptation from its original, the fact that it's had so many seasons now. It's going to become a cliche in itself. It's going to be criticized for stereotypical depictions almost by default, because it's going to get some press and some notoriety and some traction.
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. There's the people who say it's not as good as the French original, and I do like the French original, but I would say the depiction of autism in that is more hyper realistic. And Patience is obviously a neurodiverse actress, and the social group are neurodiverse actors. But yeah, I've seen people saying, "Oh, now people think we all wear headphones," and but you know, you've got to take small victories and build on them.
I think if you
Yeah,
watch the Scottish TV series Dinosaur, you see another approach. She isn't in any kind of self-help groups, and I've not seen a reason why so far. But she just gets on with it with her way, and it's rather amusing in that kind of Scottish sentimental way.
I think there's one, I can't remember the name, but GR will know, the Korean one about the young lawyer. It's kind of this more fantastical sort of, not surreal, but like that other magic realism that show does, which makes it interesting. But then I want to add there are some American reality shows about dating. I haven't seen them, but oh, I don't like that. Uh, because not that's supposed to be non-scripted, but then they edit it so highly. I'm more concerned about something like that.
The undateable sort of reality TV thing.
Kind of like if any minority group gets exploited by the media, you know, it's kind of got its edge.
Is it called Undateable? It's where they match up autistic people on dates and their parents are somehow even part of the show. It just I just wouldn't be able to watch it.
Yeah, you're talking about Extraordinary Attorney Wu, which is another show I've seen. But I think, in addition to the depiction of autism in that, and to a lesser extent in Astrid Murder in Paris, there are also cultural differences that you see. I mean, the treatment of women in South Korea doesn't seem to be as equal as you would hope for.
I found I had to give up The Good Doctor after 3 episodes.
Yeah, that's based on a Korean show. But I mean, I do like that. It does go. If you like House, you'll like The Good Doctor because it's the same people writing it. But and I think they had one actress in there who actually was neurodiverse. I think there's a later episode where there's another doctor introduced who has autism. But I mean, I do like that show. But I mean, that's finished now.
When it comes to fiction, the fiction needs to have something to make it entertaining. So there needs to be a quirk, there needs to be drama. I haven't seen any of these. I've seen some of them advertised, and I'm never been really keen to have a look because of the stereotype thing. Although I may do. I'm quite sensitive, I suppose. And I'm a sort of person that just kind of watches the same thing over and over. Trying anything new that way is difficult anyway. But I think that'd be more difficult because it kind of hits more to home. Or it feels like someone's insulting, throwing an insulting stereotype at me. I'm quite sensitive that way. But as I say, a lot of these things, there's got to be exaggerations for it to create a following. Because if it was just what reality can be, and reality can be fantastic, it can have drama, but of course it's not as constant. And if they show you maybe if they did show you a boring autistic person, that would be entertainment itself in some way, but that would still be a stereotype. Because as we know, all autistic people are all different from one another.
It's like
I'm
what
sure
James
they
said
do.
earlier about us being in the minority. They have to sell to the majority.
Jesus.
Oh, I didn't want to forget to say, even if it's a bit stereotypic, and I feel like they are becoming less. Um, I think though that there will be people who are watching it in that whatever we want to call it majority, who it rubs off on, and I actually do think younger people will wear headphones more now, and so I don't know. I get it that they need to be written a certain way. And I'm not opposed to watching them, even though I don't watch things much. I'm more of a listener, like Jules was talking about autistic radio being um, an a pared back experience because it's just audio. So I prefer just audio, but I think these shows are compelling for me, even if they're wrong somehow. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I like reading between the lines of what froths up to the surface, the culture.
When I'm out and I see people wearing headphones, I wonder, are they noise cancelling headphones or are they just people listening to music? I see it quite a lot, and I mean, I wear a Sunflower lanyard, but I mean, you know, these people are amongst us. That are they one of us or aren't they? It's down to them if they want to identify.
I still can't get over people talking to themselves in the street and on buses and in shops. I mean, the other day there was a guy walked by me and he was actually singing death metal lyrics, like that, like that, and I thought, what the hell? What was that?
I'm just
Yeah, I
gonna
remember
say,
one time. Go on, Teresa.
sorry, but I think might be nice to do sort of an historic fiction series about it because it's always been around, you know. I when Ray, you talked about people talking to themselves. Now we don't know if they're talking into a microphone or what they're doing, but people have always been doing all of these things, I think.
Gia?
I was just going to say, isn't it commonly considered that Sherlock Holmes had autism?
Totally. I used to work in the special collection at the reference library. To this day, I will consume any Sherlock Holmes related thing. And there's a new podcast series that I'll share with you all if you have any interest. They really are emphasizing it. They come right out and say that he is, but not often, maybe like once every 5 episodes.
Well, thank you, everyone. It was a good discussion tonight, as always. And thanks to the people who have shared those posts that we've talked about tonight. This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 15th of February, 2026, which is part of the 5:55 p.m. Spectral Voices conversation, which is broadcast every Sunday, 5:55 to 7 p.m. UK time. So thank you once again, and I'll see you next week. Good night.
You're going to have to work on that to make it snappier, Harry.
I thought I was doing great, but yeah, you're right. Absolutely. It's fun trying.
Yeah, it's going to come over a period of time, isn't it?
Who's going to end stream?
Any of you?
You'll have to watch the last few minutes